Hello and welcome to Unapologetic podcast by SilverJay. My name is Ria and I am your podcast host. And today we are going to be discussing correcting the narrative, a brown girl's guide to challenging the system. This podcast aims to controversially rebel and collectively fight for women and sometimes more specifically, women of colour to be heard in conversation. Now today I'm here with the lovely Shilpa.
Hi.
And we're going to be discussing some interesting and borderline controversial topics. So Shilpa, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself and what's brought you here today?
Sure. I'm Shilpa, also known as Late Afternoon Thoughts. I run an Instagram page and I'm somewhat on TikTok as well, but I do a 9 to 5 in banking and I'm also Malayali. So I have a few different things going on in my life, clearly, and within the creator world, I try to talk about challenging the narrative and the stereotypes and understanding what brown girls can really do without falling into cultural norms.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. I think the narratives that you actually put out are truly authentic and truly unapologetic. So I think today, the reason that we decided to do this pod was because of a lot of discourse that is happening in the brown girl community at the moment. And in true authentic style, I think it was important to really challenge the system and really unpack what we're doing as brown creators and what we're trying to genuinely achieve. And I think it's super important to actually be critical and it not be taken in a bad way, because we have to be critical of our environments. You know, that's how we've got to where we're up to today. So any initial thoughts, and then we'll get right into it.
Well, you mentioned there's a bit of discourse happening right now, and I was just thinking, when is there not discourse happening? Obviously, like, to be topical, there have been quite a few conversations around exactly what you mentioned, which is just critique of other brown girls. Not that I feel passionately about this, but I do think it's quite important to talk about the fact that we should be like challenging each other. And I'm going to preface this by saying that this is not the same as like pure vitriol and hatred. Like, that is a completely different conversation topic. But I think especially when it comes to the representation of brown girls, which everyone likes to think of themselves as, which is totally fine, I do think that then should entitle your audience to choose what part of them is being represented as well. So I think it's completely warranted when people with platforms, for example, open up conversations about what their audience like and what they don't like. It's not sensitivity. It's just kind of, as a creator, accepting that the judgment criteria that applies to other forms of media like TV and movies and stuff also apply to the media that you're putting out there. And that's just part of this like role description. And you can't see, you know, movie creators and TV creators hassling people who have written bad reviews to say, oh, you hate to see us winning. You know, it's personal. It's something that, you know, people need to be taken down for. It's simply a review. That's it. And when you open yourself up for judgment, whether that's good or bad, you have to take the good with the bad. And I think as brown girls, I think like you mentioned, critiquing each other is the best way to like move forward in society as well. We were told for ages like to not question anything, to just take what's given to us, and I think we can't do that anymore. We just have to keep pushing.
I think you made some amazing points. I think one of them is not actually taking what we're given. And I think in a very capitalist environment, anything that is given to an ethnic minority is seen as a win. And I think it's really great that we celebrate these wins. And I'm not saying, you know, these things are negative at all, but we're saying let's critique why we're being given the win in the first place. And is it representing us in a way that we feel is actually encapsulating what it means to be a South Asian, you know, and the realities of the day-to-day existence of every generation, specifically of South Asian women. You know, we talk about the term, I'm going to get into it now. So I'm going to break it down. We all know what happened in the Diwali discourse. Like, it was ridiculous. I think there was a lot of back and forth about people who wanted to challenge the concept of Diwali parties hosted by capitalist corporations and them commodifying a religious festival is the thing that we were critiquing. And I think that was super valid.
Yeah.
What we don't want to see coming is hate towards the creators that are attending these events, because it's not up to them to create the events. They just attended. And I think that is what it is. Personally, I didn't see much hate. I didn't. I don't know if you did.
No. Like I mentioned, there's a difference between critique and vitriol and hate.
Yeah.
Like that's,
Absolutely. And I think what we now want to do is take it one step further and actually analyze why we are saying this is a negative thing or something that we need to also look a bit further and challenge the system in and not take what we're just given. What do you think that would look like in a commercial environment? What would be the right way forward for corporates to do? Because I've got an answer, but you just have a
Okay, interesting. That is definitely a big question. And I'm, again, going to preface that I'm just someone on the internet, and this is my personal opinion.
I'm just someone on the internet too.
But obviously, I think the steps that are being taken at a high level are good. Just acknowledging that, you know, brown people exist as a big part of the population and have been part of Britain's story for centuries, not just like, you know, the immigration that's happened over the last 50 years. We've been part of their story for years and years. So acknowledging that and bringing them closer to the British identity, I think, is a very, very important thing. And you can see steps being taken in that kind of direction. However, for example, I was invited to a lot of Diwali parties, and I'm a Christian Malayali from South India, and I was invited to a lot of Bandi Chhod Divas and Diwali parties. Obviously, it's an absolute privilege, and it means a lot that people have like noticed me and that I exist and to be given that platform. But again, it just kind of shows that there is an extra level of detail that is around being Indian that brands perhaps don't pay attention to. So that is a big question that was asked this year, and obviously like over many years, as change always does, there will be change happening. I can't say that the best way to do this is to not invite any people who aren't Hindu or Sikhi or anything like that. It's just to acknowledge that there is diversity within that, and that being Indian isn't just one, you know,
big pot,
blob of brown skin. And I think I've heard stories of people who are Muslim and people who are Bangladeshi and Pakistani all being invited to Indian events, and it again just shows that kind of like gap in knowledge about what being brown actually is. From a marketing point of view, I absolutely understand what the brands are doing. Like at the end of the day, that's a brand that has a campaign or initiative and KPIs that they need to hit. But I think as an audience and people on the internet, you just need to also acknowledge that when you're seeing all this content. Like these brands are not doing it because they deeply, truly care about the Indian identity. And I'm not saying they should, to be honest. It's not like their prerogative at all. But they are doing it because they've done some market research and they've analysed the stats and seen that South Asians are a market that have disposable income that they haven't tapped into. So they've done thinking behind it to launch a campaign to include them. And that's ultimately where it's all coming from. And I think that's totally fine. It's business at the end of the day. But I don't think we can then, this is what you said, like we're just given that and we take it as, oh my God, that means so much for us. But we should be saying that like, okay, we acknowledge that you have to do your thing for your brand. And we're absolutely privileged to be invited and we'll celebrate, but we don't need to act like that's the pinnacle of representation. That's all.
Absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head there. I really think you did. I think it's really important to acknowledge that these industries are getting commercial gain from us, but equally we're mutually benefiting because we are now, you know, front and center in a time of year. And I think we have taken that one step further now that Diwali is becoming a little bit more of a mainstream festival, which some may argue is a negative thing. We don't want to commercialize it like Christmas, but equally it's giving us some visibility and social standing that these festivals exist and they're just as important as every other festival, and we can have an equal celebration between all the religions. But the second side of the argument is capitalizing on something religious also requires a bit of analysis, because once we get into that phase where we want to become Western in that way, where religious festivals are capitalized on, you've got Easter and you've got Christmas. I mean, you must have your opinions on it being Christian. But I think it's really, really important that sometimes if we've got the power to draw back any capitalizing on something religious, that we can try and do that sometimes. And it's about really showing up for our own communities in that way. I think the next side of that also is to look at how South Asian creators are now looked at for the entire year. I think it's really important to now make us become a bit more mainstream for the rest of the year, wanting that for our communities and wanting that for each other and dehomogenizing what it means to be somebody South Asian, you know, how different and how diverse we actually are as people. I think that is the next step in our journey. So it's not to say this is all completely wrong and you've done it wrong.
Yeah.
It's to say, what are we now going to do going forward?
Yeah.
Because it's always like one step ahead. And people will say in my comments all the time, they're just like, what more do you want?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I want everything. Okay, I want it all. I want it all deconstructed. I would love if there was so much more acknowledgement and so much more visibility of the work that people are doing behind the scenes, the people that we don't necessarily showboat or see online all the time.
Yeah, there's a couple of points on there I definitely want to touch on. So I think the parade of South Asian culture at this time of year, like you mentioned, is great. But for me personally, I don't know how you feel, but like that strength of diversity comes when you're just a person who's being treated equally in the room. Like, you don't need a big pomp and show and that, you know, we need to get up and do a little Indian performance for everyone. I don't think that's necessary to be treated as someone with equal respect. Coming from the corporate world, I can say that I've been an active member of BAME communities and all this stuff. And I felt more othered when I'm part of that and trying to tell people that, like, oh, I'm Indian, look, I'm Indian, than when I'm just in a room and I am a brown person at the table and that my ideas are taken seriously. I'd rather be treated normally for the whole year than just be treated extra special for 1 month of the year. And then regarding that Christmas point, I definitely feel passionately about that, because when I spoke about the Diwali stuff, people were getting worked up in my comments again that, oh, you see white people doing this at Christmas and, you know, why are you never complaining about them, you know, commodifying this? And I'm like, I personally, as a Christian, I do feel a bit weird about that, like that people don't respect the religious element of Christmas at all. And I'm not the most religious person, but Christmas to me means something very, very different to what Christmas to the average British Hindu Asian does. It's a time of togetherness for them, great, but it's not the same for them as it is for me as a Christian. And if Hindus, and, you know, my partner's a Hindu and I'm getting integrated into the Hindu culture now as well, if we just let that slide for years and years, it's going to become the same thing. So have the conversation now, make sure that the religious element isn't forgotten and it doesn't just become about partying and glam and going to the club. And I promise you, you won't regret it, because Christmas has become something where it's purely for materialistic, like, capitalist gain, to just buy things and purchase things and buy gifts and make more trends and all this stuff. And it's not the same. Like, Ralph Lauren Christmas is going around at the minute. And I'm like, can everyone just have a normal Christmas, please? Like, let the people who want to go to church, go to church. Let people spend time with their family. You don't need to vlog the entire Christmas day. You don't need to use it for gain always. Like, these are precious moments of people's lives. So Diwali is, I hope, not going to go down that pipeline, because we're having that conversation now, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's a really good point. I did a post last year on the commercialization of Christmas, and they ram it down our throats from about November. And I cannot continue the concept of a Christmas spirit for that long. Like, I cannot feel joy for 2 months straight. Like, it's impossible for me. And I was like, why don't I feel Christmassy? Why don't I feel Christmassy? Because Christmas is constructed. Christmas comes at a very small time of year. It's literally like 3 days. You know, and you feel, as you said, my perception of Christmas will be very different because I am Hindu, I'm not Christian. I buy into what Christmas means to me as a British Indian, and you feel it, but you can't, it's not actually, they make you feel like you should feel it, but you don't feel it because it's not real. And I think it's going to be the same thing again, like you said, with Diwali. And that is something that we are now critiquing and pushing towards. Like, for me, Diwali as a Gujarati girl is really just doing like a chopra pujan at home. We literally light the candles. I don't wear any makeup. Like, my mum puts on a suit. I sometimes am in jeans. Like, it is so personal to us when we're actually sat there and we write down our intentions in a red book. Like, it is very homely and very religious. I never we never did the whole party thing, and we don't do celebrations, and I don't really get ready. Me and my family, we actually don't really get ready all the time. We're very much like quite homey people and like to be in our own skin. And that is how I've always seen it. So actually, when I was personally looking at all this content and all the, outfits and all the parties, I started feeling a little bit like, oh my God, is that what I should be doing? Over the course of this year. And it is the concept of influencing. So it started to influence me in a way of, should I now be doing this in my home? Should I now be inviting 50 people into the house to celebrate Diwali? Should it now become a party? And I had to take a step back and think, actually, no, I'm okay with how I do it every single year with my family. And this is good for me. So it really is navigating that change and being resistant to it, because after colonization, we now try and mirror what the West are doing and see them as the example. And in reality, this is not the example we want to follow. This is not the route we should be wanting to go down. Real decolonization is not mirroring the West. It is really staying authentic to our own culture, whatever that looks like, post-colonization. I can't tell you what it looked like way back when, and it's a shame that we don't have any archives of it. I would love to know how my ancestors celebrated these moments. I just will never know.
I don't know if I'm speaking out of turn here, but I think Diwali is just humble.
Yeah.
It's just humble, and I think that was completely missed this year.
Yeah,
it wasn't a very humble celebration that was thrown anywhere I looked.
And talking of humble, should we go into the narcissism?
Okay, sure.
We briefly discussed this about sort of this concept of representation and what it actually means, and talking about the work that is being done for our visibility. But I would say visibility is only one thing, but actually having integration into society as not somebody who's assimilated to be into whiteness as it would, but actually just being a brown woman in these rooms. You want to be strong to your identity, but not shouting out about it, like you said. So what do you feel?
Yeah, I think representation is a word that is thrown around an awful lot on the internet now. And I think it can come in two ways. It can either be bestowed upon you as like people genuinely feeling like you are representing them. And I think more often than not, people bestow upon themselves. And I think that's just something we need to be really careful of, again, because no two Indians' experience is going to be the same. Like yours were you born in this country?
Yeah, I was.
Yeah, I wasn't born in this country.
Right.
You're Hindu, I'm Christian. Like, we're both brown, but our experiences are completely different. And sometimes I go online and I talk about my Malayali community, and Indians are replying, being like, oh, this doesn't apply to me. This is not what my community is like. And I'm like, I didn't say it was. I am not
exactly
saying I'm going to be representing all brown girls everywhere. And I think that's the danger with people who bestow it upon themselves, because they don't honestly take the time to think that there are nuances within that, and that no one person can tell the experience of other people. And I think representation and being a role model are two different things. If you just want to see a face in a room, yeah, fine, that's representation. And someone is there that looks like you, that has a skin color like you, and that might feel empowering for a few moments. But I think being a role model and teaching girls that, you can do something other than what was prescribed to you, or you can push narratives, or you can completely go against your parents' will and find a life for yourself. Like, these kind of things are things that aren't talked about in our community, and there are girls out there doing it. And I think those girls absolutely deserve to be looked at more as role models than just representation, because it's a very complex role in itself to be a role model. And I think these influencers and content creators and I'm speaking genuinely as an influencer and content creator who knows all the behind the scenes of filming content and getting PR and going to these events and things like that. These events are simply just networking events, and they're great fun sometimes, but they are simply like every other corporate networking event. Filming content is time consuming and effort consuming, but it's not intellectually challenging. Unless you're talking about something intellectually challenging. And getting PR is absolutely fantastic. Who doesn't like gifts? But it's not groundbreaking to work with this brand and that brand and this brand unless you're working with the UN or policy changes, and you're not changing too much in the world by just accepting beauty gifts. And that's, people will absolutely disagree with me on that, but I'm more than welcome to hearing their opinion. And I think this inflated sort of self-perception that influencers have, because again, once you enter that world fully, you only speak to people who are similar to you and or people who really look up to you and kind of do that inflation of ego as well. So your audience. And I think it's very easy to develop a bit of a complex that you are doing God's work, like I said, but ultimately it's all just marketing. And I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that you have a job that is focused on marketing and advertising. That's completely respectable. But I think my challenge comes with kind of equating that to genuine trailblazers in the world. And I don't think, attending a Diwali party and posting, what is it, light over darkness and something like that is groundbreaking. And it's what brown girls of 12, 13 years old need to see, especially not if you're wearing, again, the antithesis of Diwali's premise, which is humility. If you're wearing like designer lehengas and fully glammed up, all like gifted by so-and-so and makeup done by so-and-so and hair done by so-and-so, it all seems very materialistic. And I don't think that's a good, again, representation to young girls. So that inflated sense of self that you are doing something groundbreaking, for lack of a better word, is just sort of justifying the role of an influencer and trying to make it sound less materialistic, when at the crux of it, it is. And that's like, as much as I love creating content, I would not like to be referred to as an influencer, because I don't like to think that I'm influencing people to buy things. I think I'm simply just creating content, talking about things. And there is a distinction between both, in my eye anyway.
I think that's a really good way of putting it. And I think having influencers be honest about their role in the marketing and advertising industry is incredibly important, and some self-awareness of what they're doing is vital. But I think part of it might be that it's quite difficult to acknowledge that you're influencing young girls, maybe sometimes for the worse. It's unfortunate, because your brown skinners shouldn't be doing the advocacy for you. You should be doing that advocacy no matter what you look like. I have so many allies that look different to me and are doing the work with me that are really genuine trailblazers, and they don't have to look like me. And I think that's really important to understand and showcase. And if you are coming out with interesting opinions and you are challenging the system, or you are potentially challenging the brand that has invited you to something, I think that is where we need to continue those conversations and continue going. Things, policy changes and discussions with people who are, actually in the big rooms making the big decisions are really, really looked over when it comes to actually who is doing the work to allow us to be sat here right now. I can look at my parents' journey particularly. They're actually creatives as well. And without them, I wouldn't feel the confidence to be able to be sat here right now actually having this conversation with you. And it's looking at the generations above us. They are the ones that did the really, really challenging, heart-aching work that we all now bitch about. And we call them aunties.
Oh my God.
It's so mean.
Yeah.
Like, just, we are, I think I saw a post, we are the first generation of our kind to have financial freedom as women, to actually be able to choose love, to be able to travel without needing to ask permission to some degree. I think that each context is very different. I don't want to have a sweeping generalization. That is my personal experience. I continue to advocate because I know, as someone in a position of privilege, it seems like my duty to do that. I feel like it would be really wrong of me to just take the privilege and run with it. I don't think that's what I want to do. But equally, it's acknowledging that I didn't do a lot of it. And that's what I'll say.
Yeah. I think you're really, really correct, because I think having a camera put in front of your face doesn't make you the pinnacle of like hard work. And like the right person to advocate for what working when the odds are stacked against you are.
Yeah.
So I do like to think, and again, having probably about 6 years of experience in both industries now, I can say that working your way up in the corporate world is really, really hard as it is. And doing it when the odds are stacked against you is even harder. Putting a camera in your face and creating content is very easy in comparison. So when I see influencers, and I've talked, this is something I feel very passionate about, is when people say, oh, you know, you need to get out of the 9 to 5, you know, working for other people, it's being in shackles, it's this, that, and everything. You should be an entrepreneur. This is what my life looks like on a random Tuesday because I quit my 9 to 5. I think the 9 to 5 is really, really hard. Just because, you know, your parents had enough money that they can provide you a safety net, or you had a private school educated background where you have connections and things like that, that doesn't mean that you can then turn around and slate people who have to rely on the 9 to 5.
Yeah.
And it definitely doesn't make you such a huge risk taker. Like, you have the odds stacked in your favor in that path, and you've taken that path. So you've taken, controversially, the easier path. And I think the women, the people of color who are working in the Western corporate world and working their way up. I think you mentioned like your auntie who's like very senior and involved in a lot of like big decisions at large companies, either run by Americans or British people. I think those people are doing a lot of work for brown people, because then they're, you know, passing the ladder down or showing people that that can actually be done. And I think that is something that doesn't get enough credit, because we're too busy giving credit to people who just, I hate to
say it.
just that use, you know, a foundation range, because, oh my gosh, I didn't know this foundation range covered South Asians, and now I feel on top of the world. Like, I don't think that's what we should be relying on for.
No.
Again, it's like we just take what we're given and we're like, oh my God, that's amazing, right? But no, we need to absolutely push where the odds are stacked against you and keep working.
No, it's a really good point. And I think it's going to be really important, especially if we've got younger listeners here at the moment. It's like, when you're watching these creators, and any creator, no matter what their race, and you're looking specifically at influencing when it comes to fashion and beauty and weight and hair care and skin care and all these types of care, it's really overwhelming. And I said to you before, I've struggled with my own insecurities, and I really find it challenging to watch consistent threads of, you know, all these different types of beauty models and modes that we should be doing all the time. And I think the industry, weirdly, for some reason, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry that predominantly does well for women. So women who are influencers really profit well from the industry. So you're seeing this really strange dichotomy where you've got women benefiting from the industry, but at the expense of other women who are feeling shit about it. So it's not to say one is correct and one is not. We are simply opening up the conversation to say, this is great that you're making money, and we want you to keep making money as women, because it's a female industry. But equally, you now need to see the effects of what it's doing to predominantly younger women in the industry, and how this is now affecting girls growing up. And it's not to say one influencer or one content creator is responsible. It's actually as a whole, like what it's doing. And you can look at it from every sort of capitalist corporation. They exploit to make profit. It's just a really simple equation. That's how colonization was essentially built. We exploited the East to benefit the West. We saw the concept of industrialization back, what was it, in the 1800s, something, 89, whatever it was. We say like we had this huge boom in the West, and like we just ended up exponentially developing. Why did that happen? Because of all the people in the global South literally being there as manpower. They did that because they had to. It was forced labor, and we see those structures happening right now. So I think it's really important to acknowledge that these structures and these things are much bigger than us, and they are going to affect people, and we have to be honest about it if we're going to exist in it. And this is the last point I'll make before I let you jump in here, is I did sociology for my undergrad, and coming from a place of privilege and doing sociology, it gave me a really good grounding, because I had to really acknowledge that I had privilege, but I also liked material things. And I became very anti-material. And I was like, I shouldn't want these things. Like, I shouldn't be allowed to want to dress nicely. What does any of this mean? Like, I am a consumer that is in this system. This is not a good thing. It's very young and radical of me.
No.
And I was really struggling to jump out of that and trying to find the balance between materialism but also like advocacy. And I feel like I'm getting there with the balance. I feel like I'm trying to do stuff that isn't always online, and I have been a bit quieter lately because I'm trying to be in the real world and do things actively. But it's not an easy thing, and I'm not going to say one person should get it right. People can analyze and criticize the way I live my life. That's absolutely fine if people want to do that.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, we all live in a capitalist world and we all use products. So again, I'm not saying that I don't use some of these brands' products, or, you know, I'm wearing a full face of makeup today. That's okay. But again, I don't reduce my identity to just that. It's just something I do, like taking a shower in the morning. You do these things, but then there has to be something a little bit more about you. And that's kind of mainly what I'd like to focus my page on, and have been trying to, just encouraging women to step outside of that material bubble.
Yeah.
I wrote something probably like 5 years ago, something now, where I titled it "Distracting Women with Shiny Things." And
I love that.
And it was a reflection on like just coming out of university and like seeing my peers, especially who were women, not really care about much else. They were like, oh, I'll get a job, right? I'll get a job. And then it's more about marriage. But the things you hear women talk about more is what they're wearing and what foundation they're using and all these things that are unfortunately still going on now. So when I was writing that 5 years ago, I was kind of like, we've literally had all this stuff given to us, all these opportunities given to us, but corporations are still trying to find a way to like distract us so that we don't go after what we actually now have the opportunity to do.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about this the other day. I was like, I can't believe that's still the case. Like 5 years on, and obviously like there are a lot more women in male dominated industries and stuff, but still women are focused on, what I will post a video where I'm like talking about something important, and someone will be like, oh my gosh, which lipstick are you wearing? And I'm like, that's really not the point. But I'll tell you anyway, it's fine. But it just kind of feels like there's so much deeper work to be done, and one person can't do it. And if one person does it, they're called radical, right? They're like, oh my gosh, why can't, like, not everything is that deep. But
it is that deep.
It is that deep, and there's strength in numbers. And if there's numbers, then people don't have to be so deep about it, because there's enough of a conversation going on. And I think we just need to normalize the fact that we are not just beauty and makeup. And again, like I said, we use it, that's fine. But I don't think, for example, feeling confident in yourself is reduced to just beauty, like skincare products.
Yeah.
I think it comes from a lot of inner work. I think it comes from going to therapy. I think it comes from making the right friends. I think it comes from questioning things and realizing what your intentions are. I think there's so much mental work to be done in feeling confident in your skin that we're just missing the point completely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I totally agree. And it's really refreshing, actually, from somebody who is a content creator, because I feel like I've been really trying to undo what it means. You know, we are consumed by having to keep up our appearance, and it can be quite a burdening aspect on a woman's monthly expenditure. It's, you know, a lot of burden emotionally and physically. You know, going out requires so much prep. It's interesting how, as women, we are in an industry, we're taught that it's empowering it's not empowering, it's debilitating.
Can I
go for it?
You just reminded me of something I literally experienced a couple of days ago, and this is going to make me sound incredibly out of touch, but I've been receiving a lot of PR for like the last year, I'd say, right? I've not really needed to top up my makeup products, but the other day I was like, okay, I want to get some new nail polish and a new eyebrow pencil. I went out and 3 items cost me 50 quid, and I was like, oh my God, I forgot what this is like. And I was just like, this is what we're really pushing. Sure, the influencers get free stuff, but then they're just influencing, like you said, they're exploiting the audience who don't have that income to then go and spend £50.
Yeah.
And it comes from like such a ignorant place to just be like, you have to get this, run, don't walk, and this and that. And I'm just like, this is a huge expense to ask people to go and spend like £80 on a foundation.
Yeah.
And yeah, when that penny dropped the other day, I was like, this is so bad. Like,
Yeah,
this is,
it's so
I can't believe I've
bad.
been so out of touch for like even just a year, right? So I can't imagine how out of touch people are with drawers and drawers and shelves full of
Yeah.
makeup. And, you know, you can do as many giveaways and all of this you want, but like ultimately you just have to step back and like question yourself and like bring some commentary around why do we have so many beauty products. And yeah, I could go on for days.
No,
about that,
absolutely. And I totally agree, because I don't have loads and loads of makeup. I just experiment here and there, and I actually love putting on makeup. I
Yeah.
think it's a really fun, creative tool. I
Absolutely.
really enjoy it. But the overconsumption of products and all these things is wild to me. It's even like, you know, when we look at men's skincare versus women's skincare, how are men's and women's skincare so different that women need 50,000 products for one morning and one evening, and men literally use soap and like a bit of cream, and they're like blemish free. And I know we've got hormones and this, that, and the other, yeah, whatever. But like, we just have to question these things and question what we're constantly buying, because it shouldn't be something that we feel like we need. And I really try and undo that. But actually, you know, when this podcast goes out, for those actually listening, I hope this de-influences you to not feel like you need a million products, because you are enough, like just the way you are, and you don't need to go over the top with everything. It really is the inner work of feeling like you are enough. And influencers telling you to buy these things because you aren't enough is not empowering. And each product is not going to make you feel better and better and better, because you look at the supply chain of that product. Where did it come from? Who's creating it? What profits are they making? Like, it's a whole chain of people getting you to this point. It's like, you know, the Devil Wears Prada, and she's like, it's just blue.
Yeah, it's
and
not
then
just blue.
Meryl Streep basically goes back and back and back and back and back. You can apply that to basically everything that we own.
And I know we've sounded a bit anti-influencer for this like first part of the podcast, but just to vouch for influencers, I suppose, I know people have to like pay their bills at the end of the day, and I'm in absolutely no position to understand like what other options people have. But I think it's just about showing that you are aware, and you're either accepting the risks and challenges that come with it, or that you actively stand against things. You need to make your morals and principles visible and clear as influencers. I think that's a responsibility that everyone should have. Whether you have agreeable morals or principles, that's different. Then like you will find your crowd, right? But I think just going on the internet and posting incessantly and never addressing any of these topics is where the problem is, because it just seems a bit of a cop-out, really.
Yeah, it can be. And yeah, we don't want to look like we're consistently criticizing an industry that is predominantly women. But I think it's also, we also don't want to censor ourselves because we're afraid to call out. Just because I am a woman of color doesn't mean you can't call me out. When we look at privilege, like there is class privilege. And I think in certain industries, class privilege in this Nepo baby conversation has come out, and it's honest, you know. People in the film industry for years and years have benefited because their parents and their grandparents are all part of that industry. Same with politicians to some degree, you know. It's every industry has this level of like that there is networking and privilege that allows you to be in these spaces. So acknowledging that would be great. If you're saying you're the type of person that is representation and you are doing the work, if you're that kind of person, you have to then go the lengths. But if you're not, and you're just
That's exactly it.
You know, come with me to buy a blank street, I love it. I can't start telling you to have critical analysis. That is just actually unfair. You know? So if you're going to do that bit of your influencing style, go the length. Is what I think that's the conclusion.
There are lots of influencers, lots of creators who just put out stuff for entertainment value, and you know, that's totally fine. Again, like I said, I'm in absolutely no position to understand what people's other options are, what their passions are. If you're really truly passionate about influencing and about content creation, I've completely lost my train of thought now.
Basically saying do your thing.
Do your thing. But again, if you are bestowing yourself the title of representation and giving yourself a bit more self-importance than the average creator, then go the length. Like, it's a double-edged sword.
That's a great rounding, because we completely annihilated the industry.
I know, but
it's important.
You need to. Like, we could go into a conversation about banking, and there are so many things I can say that are unethical about banking and this and that. But ultimately, we all do need to survive in this world. It's
exactly.
Just, I work in banking, completely accepting that there are parts of it that are not ethical.
Exactly.
And parts of it that I wish I could do something about, but you know what? I'm going to try and get there and keep talking about it along the way. I'm not going to just hide away from those unethical parts and then one day be like, oh, I want all this change. Like, you have to keep...
it's just small steps constantly, and it really is about that. And I'm really glad we broke it down. Actually, I wanted to... there's an amazing writer. She reached out to me personally. She wrote 2 articles, one on Diwali and one on influencing. And I just wanted to shout her out. Her name's Ananya, and it's Ananya K24.
Okay.
This is her. She's, don't know if you can see, that's her profile. And she wrote 2 amazing articles, one called The State of the Brown TikTok Union on Influencer Culture, Representation, and What It Means to Serve the Community. And it was just a really good piece.
So you're going to read that?
Honestly, it was so well written. And I just told her that I was going to mention it in this pod. So I just thought I'd mention it now. And it really highlighted everything that we were speaking about in such a academic but like well-constructed way. Just thought I'd just throw that in there.
I think like critical thought is so important for women, especially brown women, because we were just told not to think about anything or question anything for so long. Like, even the little things that our parents used to say, like, oh, don't ask why, or just because I said, and, you know, just basically take whatever is given to you for the first 25 years of your life and then marry someone and then take whatever's given to you there. That's our entire life. So I think it's not just a surface level thing for us, especially. Like, I think it's really important that we question ourselves. And I get a lot of people reaching out saying that, oh, I'm like stuck in this situation and what do I do and what can I do about it? And I'm like, there's so much work that needs to be done just within yourself to like build up that confidence, and that only starts with asking why. And like, just ask why. Ask if you see an influencer, you feel like you connect with them, ask why do you connect with them? What do I have in common with them? Or what do I feel like they're representing? Oh, okay. Do I completely stand by that? Okay. If it's not any of that, is it just pure entertainment? Okay, fine. Or am I just nosy and I want to follow their life? Like,
exactly.
Ask why, and then it just gives you so much more self-assurance, and it gives you so much less space for insecurity. Like, if I follow an influencer, not because of the way she looks and just because of, you know, her fashion sense, for example, I don't need to then feel insecure that she looks a certain way. Because I've justified it to myself. Because there have been times where I'm like questioning, I feel jealous about this person, but why? I don't understand why.
Just find out through yourself, like, why do you feel like that? Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that podcast, that what was the main character podcast came out. There's 2 girls. One of them was called Jasleen. And I feel like they were very honest. with what they were saying.
Yeah. No, I mean, I didn't see anything wrong with what they said.
Yeah, and she acknowledged she was jealous.
They were very self-aware. I think to just say that, yeah, no, I hate her. I don't like the way she looks or this or that. It's like,
that's mean.
That's mean. And it's kind of not based in anything either. And it's very unaware of like where that's coming from. But she said that that's coming from a place of X and that's coming from a place of Y, or my experience with her wasn't. And I think, again, your media doesn't need to speak to everyone, and your brown skin doesn't make you relatable to another brown person.
Yeah.
And some people, whether they like it or not, just because you have a platform, people aren't going to say that you're the best representation. I also posted something recently where this American creator was quizzing 2 other like desi American creators about like political questions or geographical questions about India. They couldn't get a single one of them right.
No way.
They didn't know, they couldn't name any prime ministers of India. They couldn't name what the language of Kerala was. They couldn't name what the like national flower was. All of these things. It's just, I'm not saying, again, as like a 2nd gen, 3rd gen, you need to, but I think when you talk about being an Indian representation, you need to take some, again, go the length. Go the length.
Go
the
for
length.
It. Yeah.
Understand the political situation. Understand the historical situation. Understand, just like, don't be so uneducated about South India. Like, that is something I also feel very passionate about. Like, South India is even more homogenized, where it's
totally
no one understands the diversity within it. And I think it just, on the other hand, I think there's a lot to talk about in the 2nd gen, 3rd gen experience itself that I don't see enough people talking about. I can obviously speak from like a 1st gen experience, but I'm also curious to know what the 2nd gen, 3rd gen experience is about. And I don't see people talking about that. I see people saying, oh, brown girls shine in their langas, like brown girls, I don't know, just like very surface level nonsensical stuff. And
super surface
this is what I mean. Like, I'm not saying everyone needs to be deep, but you have experiences. You are a human of your own. Like, you have experiences that people do want to hear about. So don't reduce yourself to that.
No, I agree with that. And I think the intergenerational discussions need to be had. And even the stuff, everything when it comes to South Asia is, number one, Indian centric. So it really starts isolating minorities. India Hindu centric, and the rise of Hindu nationalism is a huge part of that. Also North India centric, and a lot of it is to do with colorism. And again, it's something that I think we could potentially go into. We haven't got long now, but it is something that we could go into at some point, because it's homogenized to a point where it's only centralizing that discussion and that narrative. But actually, we want to de-homogenize what it means to be South Asian. Anyway, we haven't got long, but it can go crazy. But yeah, just acknowledging that too, I think, is super duper important. Super duper.
Yeah. It's okay. We've used our brains up now.
It's really important.
No, I completely second that. I don't know how long we have, but
we have 1 minute and 38 seconds left.
Do you want to wrap up?
Okay. Right. Well, thank you so much for everybody that listened today. I think we had a really productive conversation. I was really excited to have you on, to be honest.
Thank you.
And I think it's great how honest, open, and vulnerable we were together. So, yeah, thank you.
I think, all criticism is welcome and should be welcome always. Hate is not okay.
It's not okay. Constructive criticism, go for it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for coming on.